Obsolete 3. This ends now. Written by Davizedo2. About 20 years have passed since the Soda Ironworks had started scrapping diesel engines. A lot had changed in that time. The sights of rusting husks of old steam engines had now been replaced by derelict diesels, all lined up and awaiting their fate. Harry and Bert hadn't taken to their new job at all. They became more grumpy and easily angry than before, and had begun to slack from their work, choosing to hang out at the quarries instead. Because of this, a new diesel was brought in. I and Clive very much enjoyed his grim work. It gave him a great sense of power to scrap these innocent engines. The Ironworks manager had changed too. He was now more old and frail, and needed a stick to walk around. He wasn't the only thing getting old, however. The ironworks itself was beginning to show its age. Buildings had become unstable, and machinery would break down constantly. It only made the place more grim and more dangerous. Financially, the company wasn't doing too well either. There weren't as many engines that needed to be scrapped now, and British Railways had since been privatised. Most of the new rail companies did not want to do business with the dying brand. Things were really getting rough. "I honestly think we're going bankrupt soon," Harry told Mavis one night. "The place is practically falling apart." The two diesels were using Farkwell Quarry as their hideout again. Mavis didn't mind this at all. They worked hard and helped her out if needed. "Honestly, we might just carry on staying here until the place closes down," Bert grunted. Mavis felt sorry for the two diesels. She wasn't ignorant and knew all of the things that they had done. However, she took pity on their current situation. She more or less was their only friend. "Well, if anything does happen, I could speak to my manager about buying you guys. You practically helped me run this place," she chuckled. The diesels murmured. They were thankful for Mavis's offer, but didn't really think staying on Soda was the best idea. "She's pure of art," Harry said to Bert the next morning. "But ain't no way I'm staying on this island any longer than I have to." "In it, brother," Bert agreed. "There's just too many ghosts on this island, and we've burnt way too many bridges. I'm sure that there are places on the mainland that we can go to." Harry quietly agreed. Suddenly, the two diesels heard a loud bang of an engine backfiring. They looked up to see the rusting old lorry belonging to their manager. "Well, that's our cue to leave," cried Harry. And with that, the twins shot out of the quarry like rabbits and hurried back to the ironworks before their manager could see or shout at them. When they arrived, they went straight back to work, marshalling wagons around the yards and acting like they had never left. Clive, that unofficial triplet, watched them from the shadows. He rolled his one good eye. "Typical," he said to himself. "Always trying to run away from who they really are." When the manager did return, he spoke severely to the Iron Twins. "I've had enough of you two," he snapped. "You used to work so hard, and now you do jack shit. You're lazy, you're pathetic, and I don't know why I bother keeping you in service." The twins didn't care at all. They'd heard this all before. But this time, something different happened. The manager suddenly pointed a bony finger out at Harry. "You're the ringmaster, aren't you, Harry? I wonder, how exactly would Bert fashion without someone telling him what to do all the time?" The diesels looked up. This was new. "Yes. Harry, you're not worth my time," the manager announced. Harry stared in shock. "You do nothing but make this company lose even more money. This place is dying, all because of you and your influence over Bert. That's why I'm letting you go. Maybe your metal will finally be useful for something." "What?" cried Harry. "Boss, you can't do this!" snapped Bert. "Oh, but I can," grinned the manager. "I own you. Now, Bert, will you behave yourself?" "I will not let you do this!" Bert shouted. "I'll fucking kill you, you bastard!" "If you want to keep your damn job, you will not do shit," the manager spat. "Harry, you're dismissed." Clive, move him to the sidings. And almost on cue, Clive came clanking in and buffered rudely onto Harry. Bert, get back to work, now! As the manager walked away, Clive started to pull Bert away towards the sidings. Both Diesels shouted and swore, but there was nothing that could be done. This was it. That night, Bert searched everywhere for Harry, hoping that he hadn't yet been cut up. Luckily for him... Oh, Harry! Shush! Don't just go screaming the house down! Harry had been shunted onto a siding on the far side of the workings. This area was so off limits, there were even some rusting old husks of steam engines still here. You alright? Asked Bert in a shaky voice. What the bloody hell do you think? Harry snapped. Bert looked down awkwardly. Sorry. Harry sighed. No, I'm sorry too. This is just... I wasn't expecting my time to have come. Now. The two brothers sat there in silence. How long have you got? A week or so. Could barely comprehend it. Another silence fell. It was deafening and uneasy. Neither Diesel could believe what was happening. So, Bert began. Is that just it then? Harry pondered, a dark look appearing on his face. No, he said bluntly. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to allow myself to be tossed away like rubbish. I can't just leave you here in this place. Bert was surprised. What can we even do? Harry thought, then he grinned. Bert, my boy, we're going to destroy this place. Once a month, a train of fuel tankers are delivered to the ironworks. Over the past few years, the train had gotten smaller and smaller until it was only 3 tankers long. It was normally delivered by James, who still hated going to the ironworks. Thank you for the fuel, James, Bert smiled politely. James was confused. He wasn't used to the Diesels being so friendly. You're welcome, James said cautiously. As Bert shunted the tankers away, James looked over towards the sidings, only to see a group of rusting Diesels. Cold chill went through his frames. Bert, James began slowly. Bert stopped and looked at him. James then faltered and looked away. Nothing, don't worry about it, he said at last. Bert sniffed and rattled off as James steamed away from the yards. James had been too kind to the Iron Twins when Diesels had started being scrapped. Looking back now, he regretted it deeply, but didn't know how to apologise. How could he even apologise to engines like them? Did they even deserve it? There's always a next time, he thought to himself. But James couldn't be more wrong. Bert got to work. Normally, he was meant to shunt the tankers to the refueling station, but this time, he shunted them about to random places in the yards, in between the rusting remains, or behind old buildings. There were only 3 tankers, so Bert had to make sure he chose wisely on where to place them. All the while, he kept a lookout for Clive, hoping that he was off doing his own work and not watching him. However, that's the thing about Clive. He's good at hiding, and even if you couldn't see him, he could definitely see you. It's done, Bert told Harry that night. Right, amazing, said Harry with a sly grin. Bert, however, seemed worried. Are you sure about this? What if anyone gets hurt? What if we get hurt? At least we'll be going down with this place, Harry answered flatly. Bert gulped, but Harry still wasn't done. Have you decided on an actual day? Bert pondered. I was thinking 2 days from now. Gives me time to gather up scrap, make some final plans. Right, good. Just make sure that Clive doesn't touch those fuel tankers. He won't if he knows what's good for him. The twins chuckled, just like old times. Before they took a deep breath. If we do this, Bert said seriously, we'll have nowhere else to go. Harry sighed, knowing that his brother was right. It's fine. After all the things that we've done, we can't stay on this island. It would just be better if we were gone, with this place going with us. If you say so, brother. I'll get everything ready tomorrow, and then the next day, Showtime. Harry grinned. Bert just smiled nervously and rolled away. He had a lot on his plate. The next day was rather eventful for Bert. He collected scrap from all over the ironworks and loaded them onto flat trucks. Once again, he made sure that he was out of sight and that Clive was off doing his own thing. Clive was doing his own thing, watching Bert from the shadows. When Bert got back to the sheds that night, he was surprised to see Clive there. He normally slept outside. What are you doing here? Stuttered Bert. I know you're up to something, said Clive bluntly. Bert scoffed. What do you mean? Oh, don't play dumb. I've seen you sneaking around the place. What are you up to? Trying to get your brother back? Bert rolled his eyes. I didn't do nothing, so just leave it. Clive's smirk turned into a frown. I'm not an idiot, boy, he snapped in a condescending manner. I've seen you. I know that you're up to something, and if you do not tell me, things won't be so hot for you or your brother. Bert just sniffed nonchalantly. If you just want to sit here and throw accusations around, be my guest. I'm going to bed. And on that note, Bert rolled into the sheds and shut his engine off. Clive grimaced and rolled away to the sidings to sleep. While Bert had put on a brave face, deep down he was dreadfully nervous. He could only hope Clive didn't try anything to ruin their plans tomorrow. Tomorrow quickly came. Harry's driver had come in. He had been fired from his job when Harry had been withdrawn, but today he was here to help out with the final stage of the plan. I'm off to start Harry up. Good luck, Bert, he said with a sly grin. I'm surprised you want to join us, if I'm being honest, Bert muttered. Harry's driver laughed. Anything to get away from child support. Bert did one last sweep of the ironworks before going to collect his flat trucks. He was pleased to find that the tankers were still in place. Good, he smiled. Guess old Clive was bluffing. But Clive hadn't been bluffing. When Bert arrived in the sidings where he had kept his flat trucks, he was shocked to see that they were not there. Bert's eyes widened in horror. No, Clive! And Bert roared away to find Clive. Bert rushed around the yards, fuming. He searched everywhere for Clive and those trucks. He searched through every siding and shed, and soon went rushing into the main smelter's yard. He was too busy looking around for Clive that he didn't see where he was going until something heavy had stopped Bert right in his path. He looked up, only to see that it was his flat trucks, full of steel and scrap, and behind those trucks was Clive, looking straight at him. He grinned as Bert took notice. Bert shuddered uncomfortably. Clive had been here all along, waiting for him. You're trying to destroy this place, aren't you? Asked Clive, with his usual sly grin. Bert's eyes narrowed. What are you doing with those trucks? You're a simple creature, you know that, Bert? I knew exactly what you were doing. The fuel tankers, the steel, you're trying to blow this place sky high. Bert blinked. His heart sank. It felt like Clive knew his every move. He wasn't sure what to do. You really are pathetic, aren't you? Clive laughed nastily. You've caused so much trouble and grief to many souls over the years, and now you're just trying to blow it all up in smoke and run away from it. You're weak. You're a coward. You can try to run away from this all you want, but I'll always be here as a memory to the monster you really are. And Clive bashed into the trucks, causing them to shove roughly into Bert. Bert was jolted back, pieces of scrap hitting him in the face. He was taken aback, but before he could regain composure, Clive smashed into him again. I said I was going to bring you down, he snarled. And that day has arrived. You cannot run from this, you coward! And Clive smashed into Bert for a third time, so hard that it caused one of the trucks to derail, and scrap flew everywhere. A sharp, jagged piece hit Bert in the cheek. The diesel winced in pain at this. "Useless," Clive snarled. "Just a little boy who thought they knew everything. This is your punishment for everything you've done to those engines, and everything you've done to me. You can't run from this. I will not let you." Bert took a few deep breaths, and then his expression turned serious. "I'm not running away from this," he panted. "I'm destroying this evil place, not just for every engine that was scrapped here, but for every other engine that is still on this island. I will make sure that this place will be wiped from history, and hopefully, so will you." Bert's engine roared into life as he charged into the derailed wagon, pushing it to one side. The other wagon was forced into Clive, who quickly locked his brakes to not derail. The two diesels charged forward into each other, the truck full of twisted metal being the only thing to separate them. Their engines growled like lions, and their sidewalls were blurs. Suddenly, there was a cough and a cloud of smoke. Clive's engine was starting to give up. "Gah!" Clive winced. "Curse these shitty rotten parts. These never were me. This is all your fault, Bert. Yours! Just shut the fuck up." And Bert slammed into Clive and the truck as hard as he could, causing the old faulty diesel to be shot backwards. His wheels left the rails and bounced along the sleepers. Clive's driver jumped out of the cab, and just in time too. There was a crash. Clive hit the buffers at the end of the sheds and plunged into the pits below. He gave Bert one last haunted look as he fell backwards into the incinerators. Bert stared in shock. He couldn't believe what he had just done, but there was worse to come. Boiling molten slag came splashing out from inside of the pit, hitting the walls and rails and melting the building around Bert. The smelting pit couldn't handle such a large load of metal so quickly at once. A large fireball erupted from inside of the smelter's pit as more liquidated metal went flying everywhere. The workmen hurried and shouted away from the blast as the emergency sirens began to ring out. Bert was almost deaf to it all. He just stared ahead in shock. "What are you doing, you idiot?" Bert looked up to see Harry. "Run! This place is gonna blow!" And the diesels raced away from the smelter's yard as the fire began to rise and spread outwards to the rest of the ironworks. Harry looked out to the burning smelting shed and raced away. He could swear he saw a large figure poking out from behind the shed wall. To look at it for long though, before the fire spread to the first fuel tanker. A chain reaction was started as the debris was thrown towards the rest of the tankers, causing them to explode as well. The fire continued to rage on, destroying everything it could on the property. It took a very long time to get the fire under control. Both the fire brigade and Solar Search and Rescue Centre had to be called to put it out. It was tough going, but after 4 agonisingly long hours, the fire was successfully out. It was a miracle that all of the workmen were accounted for, and that the only casualties had been some scrap engines, a few pieces of rolling stock, the odd crane or two, and Clive. Only a few melted bits and pieces were found from him. It was hard to say which ones were his original parts, and which ones had been salvaged from other engines. It truly showed that he had just been a hodgepodge on its last wheels. Harry, Bert, and their drivers were nowhere to be seen, but everyone knew that they had to be behind this disaster. While a warrant was put out for the driver's arrest, they would never be found. They successfully left the island and were never seen again. The Soda Ironworks had no choice but to close its doors after nearly 90 years of service. Everything had been lost that day. The big pile of ash and burnt pieces of metal were left where they were. The rails leading up to the old workings were ripped up. It wouldn't be missed by any of the engines. They saw it as a relief. Only Mavis truly knows what happened that day. She got a letter from the Iron Twins detailing their plans and thanking her for being a good friend. While she would never admit this to any of the steam engines, for obvious reasons, she did miss the 2 diesels. However, not even Mavis has any clue on where the diesels went to. Nobody does. Maybe they were able to find new homes and start new lives. Maybe they're out there, making up for their sins and trying to improve on themselves with what time they have left. Or maybe they're still running from the horrible things that they have done throughout their lives, running from the screams of engines as they were cut up and melted down, and running from the punishments that they deserve, whatever they are. Mavis can only hope that they are happy. What do you think?